It begins not with a roar, but with a tremor. Buenos Aires, 1978. The world watches through a haze of confetti and uncertainty. Blue and white flags ripple across the monumental stadium, and the sound of drums blurs into the heartbeat of a nation. On the field, Mario Kempes stands alone for a moment, hands on hips, breathing in the humid winter air. He's already scored twice in the World Cup final, yet he looks as though he's been carrying the weight of centuries. Around him, the Netherlands push forward one last time, desperate, furious, unyielding. The final whistle is seconds away. Then it comes, a shrill, piercing sound that releases decades of frustration, pride and longing. The stadium explodes. Kempes collapses to his knees. Cesar Luis Menotti raises his arms to the sky. Argentina, for the first time in history, are champions of the world. It's a moment frozen in gold, but also in complexity. Because behind that victory was a question that still defines Argentina today. How do you win beautifully and still win at all? Fast forward nearly half a century later, Lionel Scaloni stands on the touchline in Lusail, his face calm but his heart pounding like a drumline from another era. His team, Messi, De Paul, Enzo Fernandez, have just done what few thought possible, returned Argentina to the top of world football. The echoes are unmistakable. Menotti's ideals, La Nuestra, the belief that football must reflect the soul of the nation, still guide them. But now, as 2026 approaches, the story loops back to that first triumph, to the lessons written in the sweat and joy of 1978. Because history in Argentina doesn't repeat, it rhymes, in blue and white. Menotti once said, "To be champion is not enough. You must convince the world that your way of playing deserves to win." That conviction forged a template, one that still defines Argentina's identity every time they step onto a pitch. And so, as Scaloni prepares to defend the crown, Argentina once again stands at a crossroads between art and endurance, nostalgia and ambition. To understand where they are going, we have to travel back to where it all began, to the chaotic, brilliant origins of the Menotti era and the dream that reshaped a nation. In the 1970s, Argentina was a country at war with itself. The streets of Buenos Aires hummed with political tension, the air thick with uncertainty. Yet football remained sacred ground, a realm where Argentines could project their frustrations, their hopes, their defiance. Cesar Luis Menotti walked into this storm with hair that brushed his collar and a cigarette perpetually in hand. He was unlike any coach Argentina had ever seen, bohemian, intellectual, and unapologetically idealistic. He read philosophy between training sessions and spoke of football as poetry, not combat. To him, Argentina didn't need to copy Europe's pragmatism. It needed to rediscover itself. His mission was bold, to revive La Nuestra, the distinctly Argentine belief that football should be expressive, improvisational, and fearless. It was about joy in possession, elegance in attack, and courage in chaos. But to make that ideal win a World Cup, that was a different challenge entirely. When Menotti took charge in 1974, Argentina's national team was fractured. The squad lacked unity, the federation lacked faith, and fans had grown disillusioned. The memory of World Cup failures lingered, especially after the humiliation of 1974, when Argentina were torn apart by Johan Cruyff's Netherlands. Menotti knew he couldn't simply rebuild tactics, he had to rebuild trust. He started by looking inward. He turned away from foreign stars and focused on domestic talent, players who understood the rhythm of Argentina's game. From Rosario came Mario Kempes, a powerful striker whose grace masked a ruthless hunger. From Córdoba, Osvaldo Ardiles, a creative midfielder who could glide past opponents as if dancing. And from River Plate, Daniel Passarella, a defender who led not with words, but with a glare sharp enough to cut through steel. Together, they would form the spine of Menotti's revolution. But revolutions, even beautiful ones, are never easy. Menotti's early years with the national team were plagued by skepticism. Critics called him naive, accusing him of valuing aesthetics over results. The press mocked his long hair and intellectual mannerisms. The establishment wanted trophies, not lectures on philosophy. Menotti responded the only way he knew how, by doubling down on his vision. He once told his players, "If you don't believe in beauty, you don't believe in football." To him, every training session was an art class. Passing drills became choreography. Tactical sessions were debates about identity, and behind it all, his belief that Argentina could outplay the world, not by abandoning its style, but by perfecting it. That philosophy struck a chord with his players. They weren't just learning tactics, they were rediscovering pride. Kempes thrived in Valencia, but when he returned for national duty, he played as if the blue and white stripes were his second skin. Ardiles, small in stature but immense in vision, became Menotti's eyes on the field. And Passarella, the Gran Capitan, was the enforcer who kept everyone honest. By 1978, the pieces were in place. But pressure in Argentina was never just sporting, it was existential. Hosting the World Cup meant more than chasing a trophy, it meant proving the country could produce beauty amid turmoil. The team gathered at a secluded base camp near Buenos Aires, far from the noise of politics and expectation. Menotti banned outside distractions. No journalists, no agents, no unnecessary visitors. "We will live as a family," he told them, "and we will play as one." It was during those months that Argentina's identity crystallized. Kempes shaved his mustache, joking that it might bring him luck. Ardiles and Ricky Villa played endless games of table tennis between sessions. Menotti smoked, thought, and spoke endlessly about freedom. Not the political kind, but the creative one. He wanted every player to express himself within the collective. And yet, under that freedom was a silent discipline. Every player knew his role, his positioning, his purpose. Menotti's 4-3-3 wasn't just a formation, it was a philosophy. The fullbacks advanced like wingers, midfielders rotated with balletic timing. The striker became the first defender. It was a system built on trust. Still, as the tournament approached, doubts remained. Argentina's form had been inconsistent. Kempes, their supposed talisman, hadn't scored in his previous World Cup. The pressure of playing at home weighed heavily. The world watched to see whether Menotti's dream would implode under expectation. Then the whistle blew, and the story began to unfold. Argentina's opening match of the 1978 World Cup was against Hungary. The tension was electric, the crowd deafening. Within minutes, Hungary stunned the hosts by taking the lead. For a brief moment, silence fell over the monumental. But Menotti didn't flinch. He stood calmly on the touchline, cigarette in hand, and urged his players forward. The response was instant. Goals from Leopoldo Luque and Daniel Bertoni turned despair into relief. Argentina won 2-1. The pattern repeated against France. Another early setback, another composed comeback. This time, Kempes began to stir. Though he didn't score, his movement created chaos for defenders. The signs were there, something was awakening. But then came Italy, and with it, reality. The Italians exposed Argentina's nerves, pressing with precision and punishing mistakes. A 1-0 defeat dropped Menotti's side into second place in their group. The critics returned. Was Menotti's beautiful football too fragile for the pressure cooker of a World Cup? In the quiet of the dressing room after that loss, Menotti gathered his team. "The world doubts us," he said. "Let them. Because we don't play for the world, we play for who we are." That speech would become legend. From that point, Argentina's tournament transformed. In the second round, they faced Poland. Kempes, who had gone 4 matches without a goal, erupted. 2 goals of predatory instinct, followed by Passarella's penalty save at the other end, reignited belief. Kempes' celebration, arms outstretched and head tilted back, became the symbol of Argentina's awakening. Next came Brazil, a rivalry born not of politics, but of pride. The match ended 0-0, a tense stalemate of skill and control. Menotti's side held their nerve. Everything now came down to the final match of the group, against Peru, where goal difference would decide who reached the final. What followed remains one of the most debated matches in football history. Argentina needed to win by 4 goals to advance. They won 6-0. The performance was ruthless, precise, and unrelenting. Kempes scored twice, Luque twice more, and the nation erupted. Allegations of political interference have followed that result ever since. But on the field, the players performed as if possessed by destiny. Suddenly, Argentina were in the World Cup final against the Netherlands, the same team that had humiliated them 4 years earlier. And this time, the world stage belonged to Kempes. He would later say, "I didn't play that final. I lived it." Before kickoff on June 25, 1978, the air in Buenos Aires was thick with anticipation. White confetti drifted down like snow. Menotti walked across the touchline, calm and slow, while the Dutch players waited, visibly irritated, as the match was delayed to accommodate Argentina's pre-game rituals. Psychological warfare had begun before the first whistle. When the game finally started, Argentina surged forward with intent. Kempes, his hair bouncing as he sprinted, was everywhere, tackling, dribbling, shooting. In the 38th minute, he broke through 2 defenders, collided with the goalkeeper, and bundled the ball into the net. The stadium exploded. Argentina led 1-0. The Netherlands equalized late in the second half, and for a brief moment, heartbreak loomed. A curling shot from Rob Rensenbrink struck the post in stoppage time, inches from destroying Argentina's dream. Menotti later said, "In that sound, the ball hitting the post, I heard the sound of destiny." Extra time began, and so did Kempes' masterpiece. He danced through defenders once more, his shirt tangled with orange. Jerseys, the ball ricocheting kindly before he slammed it home. Bertoni added a third. When the final whistle blew, the monumental shook. Tears flowed freely, and Menotti, the philosopher coach who had been mocked for his ideals, became immortal. But even in triumph, his lesson was never about dominance. It was about identity. That 1978 team showed Argentina how to win without losing. Themselves, how to balance artistry with grit, imagination with structure. And those lessons still echo decades later, in every touch of Messi's left foot, in every surge of De Paul through midfield, in every calm pass from Enzo Fernandez under pressure. Because to understand how Argentina might defend their crown in 2026, we must remember that the foundation of their modern glory was laid not just by tactics, but by belief that beauty and victory are not enemies, but partners in the same dance. And so, as Lionel Scaloni faces the daunting task of defending Argentina's world title, he stands in the shadow and the light of Menotti's legacy. The story of the 1978 champions isn't just nostalgia. It's a manual written in heartbeats, sweat, and symphony, a story that still whispers every time the Albiceleste take the field. Play your way, believe your way, win your way. When Argentina lifted the trophy in 1978, it wasn't just a sporting victory. It was a declaration, an insistence that beauty, discipline, and courage could coexist. But for Menotti, that night in Buenos Aires was only the beginning of a deeper fight, the fight to define what Argentine football truly meant. In the days that followed, Argentina was swept into a tidal wave of euphoria. Streets overflowed with people singing, crying, embracing. Children climbed lampposts waving flags, and car horns became instruments of joy. Kempes was carried through crowds like a myth reborn, his golden boots turned into relics. Menotti, ever the philosopher, stood apart from the chaos for a moment, watching it all with quiet satisfaction. Not pride exactly, but relief. He had proven that ideals could triumph. Yet inside, he knew something that the cheering masses did not. Maintaining beauty is harder than discovering it, because every champion eventually faces the same question. Not can you win, but can you do it again? For Argentina, that question would linger for decades. The 1978 triumph was supposed to mark the dawn of a dynasty. Instead, it became a standard that few could meet. The 1982 World Cup, under the same Menotti, ended in frustration amid new political turmoil. And though Diego Maradona would deliver glory in 1986, his team's success was more rebellion than continuation, a miracle of individual genius rather than Menotti's collective poetry. Still, the 1978 team left something indelible behind: a tactical DNA, an emotional language. Their 4-3-3 wasn't about rigid positioning, it was about relationships, triangles, balance. Menotti taught his players to trust space, to make the field their canvas. It was a belief that the ball must move faster than fear, and that imagination could defeat calculation. That philosophy would eventually find its echo, not in the 80s or 90s, but decades later, when Lionel Scaloni took charge of a broken Argentina. Scaloni inherited chaos. The national team of 2018 was talented but fractured, a mosaic of stars without cohesion. Messi, now burdened by years of near misses, looked weary. The nation's identity had blurred under years of tactical experimentation and emotional fatigue. And yet, when Scaloni began his quiet reconstruction, many in Argentina saw something familiar. The same calm certainty Menotti had carried decades earlier. Scaloni's methods were not theatrical. There were no cigarettes, no philosophical monologues. Instead, there was humility, honesty, and an unshakable sense of unity. He stripped the game back to its essence: hard work, mutual trust, and expression through structure. He called it family football. Just as Menotti had built his 1978 squad around trust and understanding, Scaloni built his around emotion and belonging. Messi became the elder statesman, the guiding presence rather than the isolated hero. Rodrigo de Paul embodied the warrior spirit that once defined Passarella: relentless, loyal, selfless. Enzo Fernandez, barely born when Kempes' legend was told, mirrored Ardiles' elegance with the calm of a veteran. Even Argentina's shape, the narrow midfield, the high fullbacks, the intelligent pressing, carried shades of Menotti's ideals. The same 4-3-3 structure, the same commitment to rhythm over rigidity. The echo was unmistakable. Argentina were returning to themselves. And when they won the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, the scenes mirrored 1978 almost perfectly. Messi standing on the podium, eyes glistening, Scaloni smiling through disbelief, a nation once again weeping in joy. But now, as 2026 looms, the cycle completes. The question Menotti once faced, "Can you do it again?" now lands squarely on Scaloni's shoulders. Because defending a World Cup is not just a test of ability, it's a test of identity. In football, defending a crown is always more difficult than claiming it. When you're the hunter, you can surprise the world. When you're the hunted, every team comes for your heart. In 1979, 1 year after Argentina's triumph, Menotti admitted something profound. The greatest danger for a champion is to fall in love with what he was. That warning echoes across generations. As 2026 approaches, Argentina's challenge isn't just tactical, it's spiritual. They must resist nostalgia while still honoring their roots. They must evolve without erasing what made them who they are. Scaloni understands this balance. Like Menotti, he believes that style is not decoration, it's identity. But where Menotti's team was romantic and expressive, Scaloni's is grounded and modern. Menotti's side relied on positional freedom. Scaloni's thrives on emotional chemistry. Both, however, share the same heartbeat, the belief that the team must play as one soul with 11 bodies. That idea, unity through expression, may be Argentina's most powerful weapon in 2026. Consider their core. Messi may be nearing the twilight of his international career, but his leadership has transcended time. His voice in the dressing room carries the same weight Menotti's words once did: calm, unifying, demanding. Behind him stands De Paul, the emotional engine, Fernandez, the modern metronome, and young stars like Julian Alvarez and Alejandro Garnacho, who bring the energy of a new dawn. This mixture, wisdom, fire, innocence, mirrors the chemistry of 1978. Back then, Kempes was the finisher, Passarella the enforcer, Ardiles the dreamer. Today, Messi fills all three roles in spirit. The tactics, too, reveal a deep connection between eras. Menotti's 4-3-3 sought width through wingers like Bertoni and Ortiz. Scaloni achieves the same effect through inverted fullbacks and dynamic midfield rotations. The principles remain identical: occupy space, dominate possession, and defend as a unit. Menotti's mantra, "The ball must belong to us," could easily be heard in Scaloni's training sessions. The difference lies in execution. Where Menotti's Argentina expressed joy through risk, Scaloni's expresses it through control. Yet both teams share a defiant belief: football must be played on their terms. That is the lesson Argentina will carry into 2026. Because every opponent, from France to Brazil to England, will study them, dissect them, try to break their rhythm. But Argentina's greatest advantage lies in something that can't be analyzed: emotional cohesion. In 1978, that emotion was born from the roar of a home crowd. In 2026, it comes from the shared trauma of near failure, the catharsis of victory, and the unspoken understanding that they are part of a story much larger than themselves. They are heirs to a philosophy that outlived its founder. Menotti once said, "Football is a reflection of who we are as a people, our joy, our creativity, our contradictions." That belief shaped generations of Argentine coaches: Bilardo, Bielsa, Peckerman, Sabella, and now Scaloni. Each inherited fragments of Menotti's ideas, reshaping them for their era. But the essence never died. When you watch Argentina today, you see layers of that inheritance. Messi's patience in possession echoes Ardiel's. De Paul's bite recalls Passarella's leadership. The smooth passing triangles that unlock defenses could have been drawn from Menotti's 1978 playbook. Even the mentality, the refusal to panic, the collective calm, is a spiritual descendant of that first golden team. The 1978 World Cup wasn't just a victory, it was a statement of national character. That final against the Netherlands under pressure and expectation forced Argentina to define themselves. And that same test will face them again in 2026, this time under different skies, different stadiums and different players, but with the same heartbeat. Because football for Argentina is never just a game, it's a mirror. Every legend reaches its climax in a single moment, that flash when victory and vulnerability collide. For Menotti's team, it was Kempes' second goal in extra time, when chaos turned into triumph. For Scaloni's, it was Messi lifting the World Cup in Qatar as tears streamed down his face. Both moments were more than celebrations. They were closures of chapters that had begun decades apart, yet were written in the same language. But the story doesn't end there. For every champion, the aftermath brings silence, the kind that follows. The final whistle, when the confetti settles and the echoes fade. That silence is where legacy begins. After 1978, Argentina changed. The national team became a symbol of artistry and defiance. Young players grew up wanting to be Kempes, to play the way Menotti taught them to. Football schools across the country began preaching creativity, not conformity. The streets filled with dreams wrapped in blue and white. And now, as 2026 approaches, those dreams have returned, older but unbroken. Children who once idolized Messi now see themselves in Julian Alvarez. Coaches who studied Menotti's tactics find echoes in Scaloni's adaptability. The same questions Menotti asked in 1978, "What does it mean to play like Argentina?" are still being answered today in every academy, every dusty training ground, every corner of the country. That is the true legacy of 1978, not just a trophy, but a philosophy. As the next World Cup draws closer, Argentina stands once again at the edge of expectation. The rest of the world watches with admiration and envy. Can they repeat the miracle? Can they defend their crown? History offers no guarantees, only lessons. Menotti's 1978 side taught that victory comes not from abandoning one's essence, but embracing it. That unity is stronger than fear. That beauty, when combined with conviction, becomes unstoppable. Scaloni's Argentina carries those same truths. They play for each other, they play for the badge, and above all, they play for the story. A story that began in the smoky dressing rooms of 1978, when a philosopher with long hair told his players to be brave enough to be themselves. So, when Messi leads his team onto the fields of North America in 2026, He won't just be defending a title. He'll be defending an idea, the same idea Menotti once whispered through the fog of Buenos Aires, that football, at its purest, is art. And if Argentina succeeds again, it won't be because they copied the past. It will be because they understood it, because the spirit of Kempes still lives in every run, the wisdom of Menotti still echoes in every pass, and the soul of Argentina still burns in every anthem. The lesson of 1978 is clear. Trophies fade, but identity endures. And so, as the next generation laces up their boots and the world waits for another chapter, Argentina carries with them not the pressure of defending champions, but the privilege of storytellers. They've done it before. They can do it again, not by reliving history, but by honoring it.